Hello, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks so much for joining today. I am Megan. I'm the director of Two Bright Lights, and I'm joined today by Brittany Lowe, CEO and founder of Butini in New York. We are pumped to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you guys for taking the time to sign on for a bit to learn a little bit more about social media.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm not going to take up any more time because you did not come here to see me. You get to see enough of me through emails and whatever else. So I'm going to hand it over to Brittany, but we're going to be social media pros by the end of this. So I'm super excited. Grab your pen, paper, coffee, or other beverage of choice, and let's get to business.
Perfect. That
Cool.
sounds great.
All right, let's share the screen.
Wonderful. All right, so today we're going to be talking about social media and how to navigate it to boost sales. I think that now that we're seeing the new consumers and new couples come up that are a little bit younger, we're now in the millennials and we're getting into Gen Z, and how they are finding their vendors and finding their venues is very different than, say, 20 years ago, where you would maybe hear where your friends got married, go visit, and maybe put down a deposit. Now people are searching all over Instagram, seeing like what vendors were worked at, which venues, and they're really hiring based on that. So my whole purpose is that whether you hate social media, you love it, but you don't, or you have no idea how to work it, I hope that you walk away from today having at least appreciation for the importance of having an online presence, and hopefully some key takeaways on what you can do to further your presence and ideally have it lead to more sales. So the big question that I get is, do I really need to be active on social media? So let's go through some stats to start with. So over 200 million users visit at least one business profile on Instagram a day. 200 million. And the average age of a couple, based on the knot, is about 33 years old. And 70% of users on Instagram are under 35 years old. So you can kind of figure that there's a lot of potential customers on social media, in specific Instagram. But this also relates to whether you're using Pinterest or Not or Wedding Wire platforms, like anything that you are, or even blogs. These are just some specific stats. And what I found most interesting is that 2/3 of business profile visits are from non-followers. So that means that people are actively looking for people like you and businesses like yours to hire for their wedding. So that is a pretty big, pretty exciting statistic that I love. But I think the hard part is, and I was just speaking on a podcast about this, is that there's so many vendors out there and so many different services and options that they can have, like couples can have on their wedding day. And so I think it's first important to understand your brand, what you stand for, in order for you to accurately display it on social media. So do couples really understand what I do? So before you start posting a bunch of pictures about your business, create your why. So like, why are you doing this, right? Are you a photographer because you love capturing moments and emotions through photos? Was it because maybe you had a bad experience with a vendor at your wedding and you saw there was a big opportunity to be a vendor and to help make sure that other couples don't have the same experience as you? Whatever it is, everyone has their own story. But honing in on that why, I think, is extremely important. And who are you trying to reach? So, for example, for Butini, so we do hair and makeup services, and we're based in Manhattan, in New York, and we cater to the Northeast. So we ideally want to cater to couples that either live in New York or surrounding areas or are getting married around here, right? And you can get so specific on your ideal customer, like maybe some other brands they love or demographics and whatnot. But whoever it is, and even if you know, like right now you have a certain kind of client, but at least if you know who your ideal client may be and you're working towards getting more of them, that will also play into your social media strategies. And the last thing is, how do you best reach them with your message and services and authentic voice? The beautiful thing about having these platforms to display who you are and what your business stands for is that you're also able to show them like what you like to do. Like for us, Beautini, it's not Brittany and Co. So you're not seeing my face all over Instagram. It is our business. If you see, like, you can tell from like our images and just interacting with a person who does do our social media, you can sense even the captions, our voice and tonality. And so I think that's important to also consider. So the next little exercise that I like to do is the branding test. So if you're a photographer, if you want to attract, maybe if you want to do more like outdoorsy weddings versus a hotel wedding, right? A lot of times you see, maybe, are you going to be more moody and darker images? Do you want to have these light and airy photos? Like, what is your vibe? I think that everyone has their own style, even florists, right? Like, granted, we always, clients, we generally as vendors listen to what they want, but they're ultimately coming to you in the first place because they like what they see in your website or your social media. So what are 3 words that you would describe your brand? So I put Beautini's Instagram on here. I said, let's say like beauty, right? Because we do hair and makeup, so that's important. Bridal, we specialize in weddings, and New York, because that's ideally like where we want to capture most of our clients. And so then once you have your 3 words, so for a photographer, it could be like light, I say like light, airy, fun, or it could be vibrant, high energy, candid, or it could be editorial, whatever it is. Like, there's no right or wrong method to it, but just pick 3 words that make sense to you for your brand, and then pull up your social media. So you can either take a screenshot of it. I took a screenshot of Beautini's, and you want to see, do the last 9 photos of your feed embody your 3 descriptive words. So like taking a snapshot of your feed is a good inclination on whether you're on brand to the words that you want to describe your brand with, or if you're not. So I said beauty, bridal, and York. So beauty, you can see there's a few like up close images of someone getting their makeup done and someone doing a client's makeup. And then for bridal, you see that majority of all of them, if not all, are brides. And then also New York. So if you look into the different backgrounds, you can kind of feel, you can see some city landscapes. And if you go into the different photos, you'll see that the geotags are of New York venues. And so it's okay that if you said light and airy, but your last 6 photos are really dark, that's fine. But this is just for you to gauge where you are between how you're displaying your brand and how you think of your brand. So I think another good idea is, I even had a friend maybe a few months ago when she was rebranding. She's a photographer, and she messaged me and a few other vendor friends, and she's like, what are the first 3 things that pop into your mind when you think of my work? And so we were able to give her some suggestions. She compiled everything of what we thought between us and then prospective couples on how we described her brand. And then based on that, she was like, ooh, I need to fix X, Y, and Z to make sure that it's very consistent. And then one thing just to note is that, let's see here. One thing to note is that also, like, social media, more people are spending more and more time on. But say, like, for us, like, our photos might be very updated for social media or our website, or are not. I remember I just updated our Knot profile or Wedding Wire profiles because we had photos from a couple years ago. And so if you have all these amazing images that align with your brand, you're spending a lot of time on that on one platform, just make sure it's consistent for all, so that no matter if, generally remember, like, a client or couple, when they're searching, they might not just be like, okay, like, someone said I should use this florist, so I'm not going to do any research. I'm not going to Google them. I'm not going to look at their social media. I'm just going to give them all my money, right? Doesn't really work like that. So, like, being consistent for them to be like, oh, I love this vendor on social media, for them to click on the link to go to your website and then maybe be searching on the Knot and cross-reference. That's important, that they feel like it's the same brand. Okay, so how can I better reach prospective customers? So again, what we were just talking about is more like the branding aesthetic, and that's important to have as your foundation before you're starting just to execute and post. But some of the things just to keep in mind is definitely number one is to have a business profile, right? So whether it is just you who is a photographer and people are hiring you for every wedding that you book, or if it's like a brand where it can be multiple people, it's important to separate business from personal, and we'll get into that more in depth later. But with the business profile, you can see more insights on what photos are performing well. You can promote them differently, and it just allows people to find you a little bit easier. I'd say tag your company in all photos, because a lot of times we're finding that couples are finding you through vendors that you've worked with, but not necessarily just found your Instagram. So the easier you can allow people to find you, the better. And so instead of them making it harder, if you're tagging yourself, they can easily click you and go right to your page. The next thing is geotagging the venue or hotel. This is important too, because if you are saying that say you're based in Georgia, but then you also say that you do New York weddings, right? If you have no photos that show that you're in New York, if I'm looking for a New York photographer, I might be a little bit less hesitant. And of course, it's hard, you don't necessarily just get photos at all these amazing venues. But if you know that you want to push for more destination weddings or start working in a different state or area, then you can be mindful of even getting photos, maybe of just the venue or some florals or whatever it is, and be mindful of tagging the different locations so that people feel comfortable and know where you really do service versus what it says in your bio. Because especially the younger consumers, they want transparency, they want authenticity. They don't care where you say you work. They want to see it and feel that they can really trust you to be able to service wherever they're getting married. The next thing is tag vendors, tag the couples. The more that, especially for photographers, the more that we see photos from you and we can easily share or repost them on our stories, or even with the couples, it allows us, as a beauty vendor, to then also push out your work as well. Or if you're a planner, the more eyes that you have on the content and see, we have so many times, at least in our experience, where there's a couple that come in and they found their venue through Instagram, through a friend of a friend, and then they look at who that couple used, and so they're like, oh, well, we'll use that photographer, and we see that photographer post a lot of photos with this beauty company, so it makes sense they already know each other, let's hire them. And then it seems like the florist works a lot with the makeup artist, so this all makes sense because they all must be friends, and this is going to be really fun. Right? And you're seeing these circles more and more where they're like, all right, this makes sense. I like the authentic relationships these vendors have. They work together. Yeah. It's comfortable.
It's going to be much easier.
They know that they're all of the same quality and caliber. So that never hurts, right? And tagging someone really takes less than a minute. So it really is these little things that you can do that can make all the difference. Lastly is using 1 to 5 hashtags. I was talking to Whitney from The Knot about social media and figuring out the ideal number of hashtags. I feel like it's always changing. So whether it's putting hashtags in one of the comments after you post or right in the comments, you can even use as you're writing things out, having the hashtags instead of the words, we're finding is working really well. And then tagging press outlets. So if you want to be tagging To Write Lights or The Knot, Wedding Wire, or any other blog or publication, again, it just increases your chances of being discovered and your content being shared. And something too, I think something that's really underestimated is that with social media, this allows you to engage with other vendors, clients, prospective customers. I can't tell you how many times I'm messaging a planner about the food that she's cooking and how much I want to be over there and eat her dish. And then the next day she's like, hey, yeah, all right, fine, next time maybe you'll come over. FYI, are you actually free September 14th? I have a bride. If so, I'll email you tomorrow, right? And so it becomes very casual, and that's not the main thing. I can go down a rabbit hole about networking, but I think it just allows you to create authentic, personal relationships with people that you might just see on a wedding day, right? So like, I know there's certain florists and planners that I just feel like I know so much about their life because of following them on Instagram. And that's when you can start building like genuine relationships with others, and you'll become like top of mind when they're referring people and vice versa. And the last thing is sharing images ASAP with involved vendors. Actually, as right before this started, one of my photographer friends, Asha Gardner, we did a wedding together on Saturday, and I just got an email from her who she messaged the couple, obviously got their permission, but sent it to all the key vendors involved on the wedding day and was like, here is a gallery of the sneak peeks. The rest will be coming in 6 weeks. But if you'd like to post them, go ahead. Here's my Instagram. If you're posting on Facebook, here's my page. Feel free to also like it. And was very like short and sweet. But now instead of us being like, we need to post a picture, let's see if any of our stylists got a picture on her phone. She's now made it so easy for us to post one of her photos. And like the people who attended the wedding, they're still interested, right? Like they still want to see content that's coming out. Nowadays, like you see, like we work with photographers at weddings where now they're bringing a day of editor. So like that way, by the end of the night, they have professional photos that people can be posting. Whereas like 20 years ago, people would get them in a couple months. It'd be fine. But the sense of urgency that clients are having is so immediate that if they don't get photos or something to tie them over in like the next few days after a wedding, you might as well just wait 6 years because they don't care anymore. Granted, not necessarily care in terms of having professional photos for albums and prints, but for social media purposes, they want it soon after before it feels irrelevant.
Right. It's like it didn't happen if it's not on social media.
I know. It's wild. And I think that does rub people the wrong way. But like this is where we're at, and this is what couples are wanting. So we can either push against it and try to keep doing things that have always been done a certain way, or listen to the trends, listen to these consumers, and try to figure out how we can make everyone happy and satisfy that sense of urgency until the real deal comes along later on. So like I said, basically some main things is having a business profile so you can see the different analytics. And this is how you can go. You can go right to settings on your Instagram, and then you go into account, and then you go to switch to business profile. Or what you need to do, like you can also just separate and create a new account that is for your business, totally up to you. But I do think that allows other vendors to take you seriously, couples to take you more seriously as well. Another perk is like highlight stories. So I will get into stories more so down the road, but I think that it's important, especially for photographers. Like people always want to see, like you always see these beautiful photos, like even the one on this slide, but you also want to see like the bloopers, right, of the photos or the videos. And so highlight stories allow you to have stories where you can save them and people can see like how funny you are on a wedding day and how easy you are to work with, and get more of like this authentic vibe from you. But you also it doesn't mean now you have to post on stories every single day, knowing that you might only have a wedding once a weekend or once a month. So I think that's like a nice trick to give them that BTS content without feeling like you always have to post. Two apps that I like to use that are similar are called Unum and Planoly. So that allows you to move around photos and see how it works with your overall feed. But it can also remind you to post at a certain time or a certain day. So there's other ones where it helps schedule out your content. I personally like these two apps. I think that Planoly you have to pay for. Unum is free unless you want to upgrade to a premium package, but they allow you to move around the photos, see what works with your brand, making sure that you can apply the branding test before you even post, and then you can also be reminded to post. And then just something that I think is interesting, and the engagement rate is, like you always hear about, like, oh, you have such great engagement, or if you're just starting off on social media and you want to gauge if the picture did well for you or not. This is just like a umbrella equation, but essentially the number of likes plus comments, or you even include like the number of people who shared your photo divided by your total following times 100 will give you an engagement rate. So like anyone like around 1 to 2% is amazing, like good. 3% and up is amazing. And I think it's hard, like don't get so bogged down by engagement rate when you're first starting on social media, but this just allows you to see like how your photos are doing in relation to like ones that you've previously posted. We use this especially when we're seeing like if we want to put money behind promoting a Instagram ad.
Right.
So we can see like, all right, this one had really high engagement organically. So if our followers are liking it, then we probably, if we push it out to other people who don't know about us, the chances of them gravitating and engaging with this content is higher than a photo that doesn't have a high engagement rate. All right, so this is also one, again, because with social media, like for us at Beautini, we are getting a more and more percentage of our inquiries coming through social media, which means more inquiries, the more sales that we are getting from social media. And it is something where social media allows you to put a face to a brand. Like we know who's behind Amazon, we know who's behind Glossier. Like there's all these brands that it's not just like, all right, cool, this is where I buy stuff from, or Whole Foods. Like I just go get food, I don't care about it. Like we now care as consumers, like who we're buying from, where we're buying from, and like the background of the business. And so I think social media offers this beautiful opportunity for you to show your true self as a business owner, how fun you are, like what exercise and hobbies you'd like to do on the weekends. But it is very tricky. Like I remember first starting social media, figuring out like, oh, do I want to post about like me being with friends? Like, is it weird? Will they think that I don't work enough because I'm out having a fun time with my friends?
Yeah.
Like it's weird, right?
Yeah,
And it's just something that, again, like this is where we are in today's society, and this is what consumers are wanting. So again, like the questions that we do get a lot is, how do I balance between being both professional and personal on social media? And that's where, number one, it's important, again, like I've been saying, if you don't have a business profile, separate your business and personal. So like Beautini has their social media, and that's all about our business and brand. And then I have my personal. So if a client really wants to get to know me on a personal level, they're more than welcome to follow me. Or if you want to keep that private and just for family and friends that you know, that's fine too. And then you just have to worry about your business profile. Like keeping it separate, I think, is always the way to go. And so going into this, one thing that I want to point out, especially when I see a lot of amazing photographers and planners and vendors, one thing that comes up with social media and like figuring out how to balance social media to be fun and personal, but also professional, is sharing content. And they feel like it's bragging, right? It's like, oh, like I feel like I'm just saying I'm the best photographer in the world and like my photos are amazing, but what if people don't think so? What I will say to that is that you will always be your best cheerleader. Right? So if you're not pushing out, like if I'm not like, Beautini is an amazing option for you for your bridal hair and makeup. We come with champagne and robes and make a really fun experience for you and your bridal party. If I'm not sharing this with you, I can't expect someone on the street being like, you have to use Beautini with the same energy and passion that I have for Beautini. And so remember, like if you're not pushing out your business, you can't expect anyone else to. And then the day, if you're the business owner, there's a high chance that no one's going to have the level of passion and commitment to your business than you. Next is sharing features allows clients to understand the type of weddings you work on. So if you get featured on the Knot or Too Bright Lights is a great platform because it allows you to get featured on so many different sites and platforms. That's amazing. But if you get featured and no one knows about it, that's not fun either. Like if you get featured, that's hard. Like that's a hard thing to do. That's a big accomplishment. And so that's something that it's not only great for you, but your prospective clients or people who are working with you, they want to know. And it allows them to get even more excited for their wedding day and more excited to work with you. So just think of it as you're helping them rather than helping yourself, if that helps. And then next, so like shedding light on you as a person allows you couples to relate to you and form a connection. we recently had a bride in to Butini, and she was in between 3 photographers in New York. They were all similar price points, but she decided that she was going to follow each one of them for a month on Instagram. And so she could get to know who they were, and she wanted someone that she felt like she had a connection with. And she ended up choosing a photographer that did yoga in Brooklyn at a studio that she really liked and had a really cute dog, and she felt like she's met the dog before and that she could be buddies with this photographer, even though she's only had a phone call with. And so that's where it is, again, when you're posting on Instagram stories, like being able to show a little bit of your life. You don't have to show that maybe you just had a fight with a friend and now you're all upset. Like, you don't need to overshare that. But I do think that there's a difference between, like I said here, relating versus oversharing, and be like, all right, so like we're so, we're exhausted from wedding season. Like, we have a few weddings coming up and we're so excited about them. So we're working really extra hard, blah, blah. Or like, all right, work's done. I'm so excited to go to Soul Cycle with Megan today. I'm like, this is going to be so much fun. That's relating, right? There's a difference between sharing versus being like, I'm upset because my friend said this to me, and like, I don't feel like she should say that, and blah, blah, blah. Like, no one, like, people don't care about that, but they do want to get to know you in a positive way. And then, or if you're going through something and you're like, hey, like, I just shot like 5 weddings last month. I am exhausted. Like, I love what I do, but it's like these days where my body's aching and I have not slept in weeks, that it makes it really tough. Like, you're still being honest, but you're not getting too in depth into the personal side of your life. And I said, next thing is, again, using social media as a networking tool. I remember, funny enough, so there was Better in Chief Than Not. I remember being like Instagram friends with her, and I remember trying to, like, I was like, one day I can't wait to like meet with her when Butini's big enough and we can partner with them. But then with Instagram, I get to, like, it's very hard to obviously get a meeting with someone who's super busy and whatever else, but then social media allows you to like keep in touch and be like, oh, like, what workout was that? That looked so much fun. Okay, let's do a workout together. Or again, like, you can comment on what people are eating, or you can see like who's going to different events, and you really can use it where you're connecting authentically. And so whether it starts the conversation on social media, because it breaks down any barriers to get that initial meeting, you can form this friendly relationship, supporting each other, commenting on each other's photos, and then it can really turn into like in-person connections. And I do think it's really underrated, because that's helped us so much with Butini, is the networking. And it really does stem in, like, if you meet someone at an event, like, oh, what's your Instagram, right? It's not so much like, here's my business card, sure, it might still happen. It's like, oh, what's your Instagram? Wow, your work looks so pretty. Okay, and then you're commenting, you're learning about them as a person. They get to know you. And then when you meet, it's like you've already gotten to know each other. And so you can really fast track your relationships even further. And then again, sharing on a feed versus a story. So it depends. Like, if you're trying to relate to people, maybe it doesn't need to be on your feed, because that's pretty permanent. For us, like Butini, we put all of our like professional photos from like weddings we've done, and we sprinkle in a few events where our team goes to events. But really, we do something like Wedding Wednesdays, where we answer questions and you get to know like the team members behind the brand. And that's great because it allows you to see who we are, but it's not permanent where it's like, all right, here's Kelsey, here's Brittany. Like, they're there. We know that the purpose of our Instagram is for people to see our hair and makeup, our photos, and see the vibe of the weddings that we do. And then stories allow them to get to know us more.
I love that. I think that's great.
And then just to hit this home again, 1/3 of conversations with businesses on Instagram start with an Insta story. And we just had a client who booked us within like a few days of inquiring, and she was so eager to work with us. But she didn't have a friend who's worked with us before. And I was really very curious. And so she said that she found us through a vendor's Insta story that tagged us. And so she loved that vendor, and it seemed like we were at like this cool networking event. So she figured the credibility levels was there. And then she went into our Instagram and like fell in love. And so that's how she ended up booking us. It was wild. It started from an Insta story. Insta story is like a quick little selfie at an event, a quick little picture. It takes a couple seconds to post, maybe another few seconds to tag the vendor that you're with or the friend that you're with. That can lead into like thousands of dollars just by making these small tweaks with your Instagram. So I think that's wild. Instagram stories for behind the scenes, again, especially for photographers or even florists, right? Like you walk into reception and everything always looks beautiful. But with our new consumers, they want to see like what was the process of getting there. And so if you can have on your feed these beautiful images of these different receptions and amazing centerpieces, with the stories you can use for showing it's now they're bringing in the table, they're putting the arrangements together, and then it evolves into this amazing finished look. That's cool. Like then people are like, oh wow, I want to see more of this, and they become more loyal to following your journey. And then again, like just Insta stories, again, they're quick, they're low commitment. Like some people have different apps to make photos look really pretty and you can put text on them. That's amazing. I know that if I don't just post a photo or video, I won't post it. So for me, like I know that like I just need to be like, post my videos as soon as I take them. They're not beautifully curated, but that's what your feed is for. You can edit them, whatever. For mine, personal, like I just post because I document my life versus curate it on stories. Everyone has their own method of madness for what works for them. But no matter what you do, as long as you're consistently posting something, it allows your potential customers to get to know you, keeps you top of mind for other vendors that you've worked with before, who they want to work with you. Just think like the more that you're popping up on the top little circles of your Instagram, the more it's like up here, like the more that I see you up here, the more I'm going to think, ooh, someone just asked me for a planner recommendation. That's right. She's amazing. And I actually think that from her stories, she was at a outdoor venue just last weekend. So she'll be perfect. Right. And it was really for me to see the little circle of a planner for me to remember that and ultimately now connect her with a potential booking. So I'll leave you off with the key takeaways. Again, separate personal and business profiles. Even I'd say like obviously the business profile would take priority, but personal now you don't have to think about like, ooh, like, is it okay I post my kids on Instagram where it's now public? Like you can keep your personal private, you can post whatever you want and not have to worry that that's going to affect business. And then your business profile, you can, maybe choose like, all right, I want to do a picture of my kids from behind because I don't want their faces on Instagram. But then I can put more of the professional photos that we get from our weddings, whatever you want to do. But then you're able to really make sure that your business postings align with the branding that you're trying to portray. So being clear on your brand messaging. So if you want to work with like in a certain area or a certain kind of wedding, right? Like not, do you want to do the super duper high end weddings? Do you want like high end weddings? Do you want to do more but at a lower budget? Like whatever, like there's room for everyone. But like the more clear and concise you are on exactly where you compete in this massive industry, the clearer your consumers are going to understand. Maybe they're like, oh, like if she's always posting these super duper nice photos, like I'm not going to even reach out because I know I can't afford them. You don't want that either. So if you are willing to do more like lower end or like if that's where you want to be, like that's amazing. Like there's a place for everyone, but being clear and being confident of where you play in the industry and where you want to be is amazing. And that allows for them to easily communicate and understand where you are and then reach out to you if they think it's a good fit. Post consistently and proudly. Remember, you are your own cheerleader and no one's going to be as proud as you are. So do it with authenticity and do it with pride because others are wanting to see your work so badly. Engage with your audience and vendors. Like make friends. Like the more that you're interacting with your couples, like they're so excited to work with you, right? Or if they're maybe haven't booked you yet, or maybe they already have. Like if they're commenting on your pictures, like this is amazing, and you're like, well, I can't wait to make even like amazing shots for your wedding. That gets them even more excited about the overall experience with you. And the better experience they have, the more that they're going to now tell their friends to book you as well. And then make it easy for different vendors to share your content. The more you're posting, the more you're tagging, where people can just say add to story or reshare, that's going to just help you and every vendor involved. So again, like I think social media is something where it's not like, all right, you now post a picture and that equals 2 wedding bookings, right? It's not tick for tack. It's a little bit more indirect, I'd say. But the more that you do it, you have to start and you have to give it some effort for at least a couple months. But the more, if you really do listen to some of these takeaways, like I pushed against putting like my personal life and sharing it with vendors I work with for a really long time. The more I embraced it and put effort into making sure we had someone really great for Butini's Instagram, I was working on mine. It really, like if you look at our sales, now a year and a half into it, we're seeing huge results. But if I was going into it with the mindset of, all right, I'm doing this for a week. Oh, I didn't get any bookings. This stinks. I'm done. You probably wouldn't have seen it. So give it time. Share your content with others. See what people are thinking. It's going to evolve. It doesn't have to be perfect right away. But I do think that if you listen to some of these things that we talked about, you're going to see results.
Awesome.
So
Wow, that's great. Here we go. Let's do this. Turn this off so we get our faces back. So awesome. Well, Brittany, that was great. I know we've gotten some questions. I have a couple questions. So if you have any other questions as we're going through this, throw them in the chat.
Perfect.
We'll make sure we get to them. But one thing that you touched on in the beginning that I thought was really important is to know your why.
Yeah.
So what's your why and how did you come up with it?
So for Butini's why is we want women or men to look and feel their most beautiful version of themselves during life's biggest moments. And so for us, like weddings is one of them, but whether it's birthday parties or whatever else, like that's where the experience comes in. So when we bring champagne or we offer to bring robes, like that's allowing us to celebrate their life moment in an even more special way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you're approaching your personal and your business,
yes,
I think, do you just get started and just try something, or do you wait until you have the most picture perfect pictures, or what do you think?
Oh yeah, I think that Agnes said that, right?
Yeah.
The picture perfect. And I think this is the same thing with business in general, right? If you wait for the most perfect business idea and you flesh it out to a T and you spend like years perfecting it, chances are you're probably going to pivot anyways, and you might never get started. And so like a business, you just have to start. And if you want to, like I know there's so many people, even friends, who get stressed about posting on Instagram. I'm like, remember, like when you're starting, you probably have like maybe 50 followers. Remember, like no one really cares as much as you do. So if you post a picture that you're like, ooh, I feel like the contrast should have been a 10 versus a 5, like are they going to be like, wow, I can't believe Brittany just posted that picture. She really should have upped that contrast, right? Like that sounds so silly. So just remember that, like no one cares as much as you do.
Right.
And if you don't start, you're never going to.
Yeah.
So just start. And chances are, similar to business, you're going to pivot. You might say like, ooh, like I thought that the scenery and like the venue shots were going to do really well. It's actually the close-up personal couple of images where you can see emotions that people like more. And so the more that you see the analytics and see the engagement, you'll slowly see like what you need to post and what's working and what's not.
So that brings me to my next question. So for you, what are the most important metrics that you look at? I think when we're looking at Instagram, obviously you have likes, shares, comments, you have similar things on Facebook. I mean, you gave us that great equation about to figure out the engagement rate, but what do you think is the biggest thing that we should be paying attention to? Because there's also followers too.
Right. I mean, followers, I feel like even with Facebook considering getting rid of them, it shows that it doesn't really, you'd rather have 100 couples or people so obsessed with your work versus 100,000 who like barely give you a like because they don't care about you. And I think that's where just having a committed audience, like that's what is important to me, both for Butini and myself. Like I want people who are like, wait, so like you love using this skincare product. Tell me more because I'm struggling with the same skin issues that you are, and that's amazing. Thank you for helping me, versus someone who just gives me likes. Like honestly, I really this is probably bad, but I just post. I post, and I'm thoughtful. Like I'd rather post a little bit less and be authentic and really excited about content or a photo versus just posting every day at 5 p.m. And like even for Butini, like we look at the numbers and see like what people are liking, but it's not like we get upset like, oh my God, our engagement rate is X. We use that for, again, promoting posts, but like we really don't care. Like we're not like, oh man, I only got 5 saves today. Like that, I have to delete it. Like it doesn't really matter. Like for us, you just know like for figuring out your purpose, like we know that it really serves as a portfolio, provides us see different looks that we can do. So as long as we're consistently providing that solution, that's good enough for us. Yeah.
And obviously having that authentic connection with potential clients, existing clients, your fellow pros that you're working with is super important. So how did you nail down your brand voice so that you sound professional but it also matches like you and the people that work with you?
So I think shared values is something that we also were very mindful of when building Butini. So we know, like for me, like a stylist who, there's some who have like crazy energy and really big personalities, and that's awesome. But like our stylists are ones who really put our clients first. It's not about them and what they want. It's them giving feedback to make the best look for the client, us listening to them and like good morals and like good people. And so we're not like pretentious and like we're high end, we're in the luxury segment, but we're not like we're the best and like everyone else sucks. Like we're totally about like uplifting and like having a fun time. Like having fun is like the best compliment. Like we get brides who say like, I feel like your team was an extension of my bridal party. Like that's the best compliment. Yeah. So when we want to post pictures, we're finding group photos where they're cheersing with champagne or they're talking about like a fun celebration. We keep it lighthearted, I'd say.
I love that. That's great. So we have sort of like a joint question from Ashley and Lydia. So Ashley was saying, as a beauty vendor, what do you do with the majority of the photos? Because a lot of times they're either at a distance, maybe due to their editing, your work looks a little bit different. And then she said sometimes struggles with getting the Sleeping Beauty pose.
Okay. Nice down.
Yes. So how do you work with a photographer? Because Lydia's a photographer and says, have you ever talked with a photographer about this?
Yes.
Especially people that you work with frequently? Do you ask them for specific images? How do you deal with that?
So that is where the whole networking thing comes in, right? It's like there's a photographer named Craig Polson and Andre Meyer, Twa, Dirty. Like there's certain ones, Asher Gardner, like we just, again, did a wedding with her over the weekend. And I know, like she already sent me a picture over the weekend, was like, how beautiful does her makeup look? And it's because she knows, like, obviously we need those. If it's someone that you're working with, and granted, you can't choose who your client is working with for photographer unless they ask us for recommendations. But like the ones that you do frequently work with, then we reach out and we have a relationship. So they know the next time that they see Butini on the vendor list, they're like, all right, they could use a few shots. Let's get those for them. I mean, the hard part is like getting the different ones where we don't have a ton where their face and you can see the makeup. Like I think that's where bringing your iPhone and getting a shot of their makeup is important. So you're not like relying on them unless you have a photographer friend that's doing it and then you can request it. The ones that we work with often, we do request, and others we kind of just make do. But we found that, again, like people love when they're all dressed up in their gowns and not just in the robes. So variation is fine too.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of photographers appreciate knowing like what shots you want, whether also maybe you are a stationery designer and you want to make sure you have a flat lay with everything. Like, I think having that help, like these are your friends, you're working on this together.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to ask because they might in turn like ask you for something.
Right. And if you are a photographer, the best ones that we form connections with and the ones that I'm always like, oh, you should use X, Y, Z, they're the ones who have the client in mind first and foremost. But as they're doing it, they're also making sure that they get a really good picture of the stationery. They're getting some really great decor shots. They're getting a really good dress photo. So they can send a photo to clienteles. They can send a photo to the stationery person. They can send a picture to the florist. And again, that helps with, you're doing them a favor, like a huge favor. But in return, when they post that picture, who are they tagging? They're tagging you. So I think that's where, again, it's like a win-win benefit that helps everyone involved.
Yeah. Speaking of tagging, how do you make sure you have all the right tags for all the vendors you worked with?
So we create like a bride profile when clients sign on with us, and that's where we do their scheduling, photos from the trial, notes. We also ask them for their key vendors.
Oh, good.
So it's really asking. I think that if not, we always ask the planner if there is one, or usually the photographer has majority of the vendors.
Awesome. Okay, so is there a place where you can be up to date with trending hashtags? How does that work?
You know, there is an app. I don't remember what it's called, but there are definitely ones that you can download and use. But I mean, you can always kind of, captions are hard because I think it's just interesting just to see when you go on to another photographer's and just see like what makes sense. Like the more specific you are, the better. I'm not very good at the hashtags, but I think of like, all right, for if it's a picture of the couple, like where was the tux from? Who designed the dress? What venue? So it could be like hashtag upstate New York or hashtag upstate New York wedding. It could be Foxfire Mountain House. And so like just being very specific, because you're thinking about who do you want to discover the photo. It's someone who probably is getting married in a similar venue, or maybe wearing a similar dress, and that's how they're going to find you. So the more you can pinpoint those, the better.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a couple apps where you can like put in a keyword,
Yes,
and then maybe it'll like
there
populate
are
some.
But some of them, like I feel like the thing is with the different like apps and with Instagram changing so frequently that a lot of times like these ones, like ones I used to use, like aren't very relevant anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it really just depends on like how quickly it's all evolving.
Yeah, and I think also you'd be very careful to get like stuck in a rut of using the same hashtags over and over, because then it's not going to work.
Right.
So doing the research is really helpful.
Yes, and I will message. There's one that is brand new that my friend has been using and she likes. And I will, if anyone messages me on Instagram, I will give it to you.
Yeah, so I know we skipped over your slide at the beginning, so I want to make sure that everyone follows you on Instagram.
Yes.
So what are both of your handles, just so we know, and maybe Gina can throw them into the chat?
Perfect. So so Butini's Instagram is just at Butini, so BeauTini, and my personal is Brittany, BRITTANY.LO. So if you have any questions, granted, I will say, like, you know, I have a beauty company. I am like a micro influencer for beauty brands. And so I am pretty in tune with the trends and what works, and just by experience, what's worked for us. So however I can help you, please reach out, and I'd love to in any way I can.
Absolutely. So definitely go follow both those accounts. I totally am like an Instagram stalker of Brittany. So I find out about the best workout classes in New York from her Instagram.
Yay!
Yeah. So
so now we have to do one together.
Obviously.
Right?
Obviously. But this was great. I hope you learned as much as I did. Brittany, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you
so
for
much
having
fun.
me. Time. And thank you guys for taking the time. I know it's wedding season. It's super busy. But if you need anything, I do think if you spend a little bit of time implementing some of these strategies, you'll see a difference. And I hope to see you guys again in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.